Okay, so in continuation of messing up, I gave you guys the wrong starting measurement for our human reference. Our human reference, when I started, I claimed was at 275 centimeters. Way off. It's 180 centimeters. So we're going to make our human 175 just to keep it nice and clean. You can make it 0.8 or 180 if that's fine, but that takes off a whole meter from our original size. And so the walls that we created were 1,000 by 500, which is what this size is. And that's really big. So what we want to do is actually make them a little smaller. So this is 1/3 the size, and here are the actual measurements. So this wall right here is actually 750 centimeters in the length, 375 centimeters in the height. These are all going to be 10 centimeters in the length, which would be how thick the actual wall is. So our first original one is this, and then 1/3 the size is this, and then we got half the size of the original wall, which is this. And so now we have a little bit more manageable size of walls. And so there's our 3 wall structures that I want us to actually set up. Now the next thing we got to do is that we've got to convert these to editable poly so that we can get them to Unity properly. Right there. So what we need to do is go ahead and convert these back, all the way down. Here is hit collapse. Select this one, and I can hit collapse 2. Always use collapse 2. We'll explain deeper reasons for this in the down the line, but it's mostly so that you will always be able to keep any of the instances that you may create later. These are all copies, so it technically doesn't matter, but I want you in the habit of using collapse 2. Now I can export each one. So I grab that, the name, hit copy, go ahead, export selected, go find a home for it. So go in here, go to scenes, go to bunker. I have an FBX folder here, paste the name, hit save. Hit OK. This is basically the default settings, I believe. It's pretty much going to be OK for what we're doing. Just hit OK. I'm sure that I'll need to make some changes, but right now it's not going to affect us too much. Copy. We're going to just repeat the process 3 times. I like to hide the objects as I go, just so that I know which ones have been exported if I'm doing a big batch. Okay, awesome. Now we'll start up Unity and build up an actual scene that we want to use. So let's get that going. Okay, I'm starting up the hub. We'll need to sign in. Once we're signed in, we've got a lot of projects in here, and I want to go through the basic process of what we're looking for this semester, which is fall 2024. So when we go do a new project, what I want you to look for specifically is the Universal 3D sample, which has these images on here. We're going to be using these files to help us learn more about how Unity does the things that it does. We're going to give our project a name. We're going to give our project a location. In this particular instance, I have a folder on my D drive, which is my solid state drive, for Unity projects. And in there, I'll create a new project for this particular thing. So I'm going to create new folder, bunker. I'm going to use that to put all the bunker scenes. So I'm going to select that folder. Bunker, and then it's under my own personal organization. I'm not going to put it on the cloud at this particular moment. I still got research for that. So I'm going to hit OK, and I'm going to pause the recording while this takes a while. It takes about 10 minutes for it to do the thing that it needs to do. So while it cooks, I'll pause. Okay, now that we got this open, I want you to just go through the tutorial that's in the actual tab over here. I'm going to close it because we're just going to talk about quickly what we want to do to get ourselves set up. And we're just going to create some folders that will allow us to hold the things we want. By looking at the actual scenes in the project folder with this demo, if we go to the Oasis as an example, open up the art folder. This structure is pretty close to what we're trying to do. We're going to have some environment, some props, some things like that. So what I'm going to do is go to this. I'm going to go to the assets folder, which is the top level that we can access inside the game engine. I'm going to hit folder, and I'm going to call this project. So we're going to call this bunker. Let's move this over here a little bit. Actually, we'll put this over here for right now. Alright, so inside here, I'm going to create a couple folders again. One will be for our models or our meshes. One will be textures, which we will make in Unit 2. Right click, create, folder, materials. And for right now, the last thing we want to add will be our prefabs, which is Unity's prefabricated assets. This will allow us to put geometry, materials, textures, any kind of things we need for our character model. So let's go ahead and open up our meshes and bring in our first FBX objects. There's a couple ways we can do this. One, right click inside the project window and say import asset, import new asset, pardon me. This is going to probably take a second. Well, it's in Max, Scenes, Bunker, FBX. Now I'm going to just grab one for right now so we can look at it. When we get it in, it'll give us our wall. It's going to be probably off by 90 degrees. And the reason why is because it's coming out of Max, which has Z is up, where every other 3D software typically has Y is up. So what I want to do next, just go ahead and create a new scene that we can drop this in so we can just kind of look at what's going on. So I'm going to go to File, and I'm going to go to New Scene. And what I want to choose is this bottom right one, Create. And now we have a blank scene. It has nothing in it except for a camera and a light. The light's going to be pretty much at origin, just a little above. So what I want to do here is create a terrain object that will allow us to start using as a ground plane when we're starting to build up our ideas. So I want to right click in the hierarchy, go to 3D object and hit terrain. The terrain creates the object at the origin and then goes up in the Z and then over into the X. And so we want to offset this so that the center of the actual terrain is at the origin. This terrain is 1,000 units by 1,000 units, so it's real easy to set up. We're just going to go -500 in the X and then tab over to -500 in the Z. Now our terrain is in the center of the world, and this will make it easier for us to create our prefabs. Alright, so now that we have our Unity project set up in some basic methods, we've got 3 walls and we've got a level or a scene. What I want to do is start building our initial prefabs, and this will allow us to update and upgrade our models and our scenes very quickly if we just take time and anticipate what our goals are. So what we're going to do is take one of our mesh objects, drag it into our hierarchy panel. This will place it into the universe. So let's go ahead and create our first empty wall, L. And I'm using capital L, so it's not the lowercase l, which looks like a 1. Now I want to make sure that this dude is at the origin, so they're both lined up beautifully. Now that I have that, I can drag a geometric object into our empty object, and now we have a hierarchy with the wall L empty being and now the holder of the geometry that is the wall L. With that, I'm going to grab it. I'm going to drag and drop right into our prefabs folder. Now in our prefabs folder, a couple of things you may notice: that our walls are on the sides inside of the mesh window. The walls are sitting up inside the prefab window. If I double click on the prefab, I go into the prefab isolation view, which allows me to actually see the object that I'm working on. And this is where we can play around with things and update things. We'll get into this a little bit later. Let's go ahead and close that. Now what I want to do is duplicate this prefab and update it with the other two meshes. So what I'm going to do is go to Edit, and I'm going to duplicate. It's in here. Duplicate, which is Control D. Now that just made a duplicate of the same thing, but I'm going to slow click, and then I'm going to change this L to M, and I'm going to get rid of the numbering. Now I'm going to double click on this, and like I said, we can use this to update our prefabs. Grab the M and delete the L. They hold the same location in terms of their axis, and so therefore they're going to snap right to the same location because we built them from that same location inside of 3ds Max. So we've got, this is our new large wall, this is our new medium wall, wrong one, excuse me, prefabs, medium wall. And what I want to do now is duplicate this one more time and replace it with a small wall. So I'm going to hit Control D, duplicate that. Right, slow click, S underscore, and then double click to open it. Drag in the new mesh, delete the old mesh, and then click on this arrow to go back to here. We can drag our new prefab into here. And now we've got 3 different walls that allow us to create 3 different variations of our buildings, which is really easy to do. So what I want to do now is create one simple wall and one simple building, and we're going to use our small walls to start this. I'm going to create empty building S. I want to make sure it's at origin, hit reset. Now you'll notice that it's right above the light, or right below the light, which means the light is actually in the X and the Z axis. It's at origin, so I just can build the wall around this. So let's grab this wall, and I'm just going to hold Control D to create a new one. Go to E to rotate. Hold Control to angle snap. Grab both these dudes. Hit Control D to duplicate those. Rotate those. And now we're going to position these so where they work a little bit better. So I'll show you the snap tool. Typically I'll do the snap when I make the first copy, but I want to let this be an exercise in how we can snap our objects together. So I can grab that one. So I have both those first 2 walls. Snapping it to that far side. Let's just double check here. Alright, so now all we gotta do is place these 4 walls around that light, which is where our empty is. We can always center it up a little later. It's kind of a funky business to get it centered using this method, but we can always be a lot crisper and a lot sharper. Once we have that, we can drag those 4 items into the building and then repeat the process of what we did with the first wall and drag and drop into here. And now what we've got is our first couple of Lego pieces that will allow us to do some fun stuff. Hope that helps.